I've heard Kenny G interviewed quite a bit. He's a really cool guy, so we need to stop making fun of him in movies and stuff.
Apparently, my mom dated Kenny G.
No way, really?
I don't want to say too much about it because I don't know how much of it was real and how much, or maybe my mom was getting catfished. I don't know.
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched. I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched La La Land. I don't know why it took me so long to watch this movie.
It's probably you were protesting because of it losing to Moonlight, and you didn't think Moonlight should have won. Have you seen Moonlight?
I saw Moonlight like the year that the year after it came out, right? And so like very soon after it won the Oscars. I have a funny story about that Oscar night. I was living in LA and we were in a new apartment, Taylor and I, and we didn't really have cable. So the only place close enough that had cable was the lobby of our apartment complex downstairs.
Yeah.
And no one else was there. You would think like in the high societies of LA there would be like people wanting to watch the Oscars, but I guess everyone had fucking cable in their own apartments, whatever.
Yeah.
It was, from what I remember, I think it was just Taylor and I watching the Oscars in the hotel lobby, or in the apartment lobby. We didn't watch like any of the films that year. And so we grew quite bored with the ceremony. And we were like, I just watch the best picture and then we'll go. Literally, they go, and the winner is La La Land. And we were like, cool. And we turned off the TV and went back to the apartment. And then it was like the next morning was like all over Facebook. They were like, the controversy of what happened last night. And we're like, we watched the whole fucking thing. Nothing happened. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? If we just like kept watching like 10 more minutes, we would have like seen it. So that was always like really funny to me that I just decided like now is a good time to turn it off.
So I was already living in Atlanta, and I guess you moved to Atlanta, what, early 2017?
Late 2017.
Okay.
October something 2017.
Okay. So, yeah, I watched this. I'm pretty sure I found out like that night that it had happened. I saw Moonlight in a theater in Atlanta, and I think I've told the story before, maybe not. But spoiler for Moonlight, in the middle of the movie, there's like a jerk off scene on the beach. It's a guy and a guy because the movie's about a coming of age of a young gay black man.
I bet it's really about a coming of age.
And this black dude in the back of the theater when it happened, nice. This black dude in the back of the theater when it happens is like, oh, what the fuck? This is this type of movie? Like he didn't know before that.
It's so weird because at that point you're like, I'm pretty sure the character's gay.
Well, so in the beginning of the movie, this is not a Moonlight episode, but in the beginning of the movie, the other kids make fun of him for being gay.
It is a Moonlight episode. We just pulled a reverse La La Land Moonlight. We said it was gonna be La La Land. Oh no, that would actually be the actual thing that happened.
That would have been a good idea if we had thought of it. So, yeah, I think but little kids call each other names, so I don't know how they would have known at that age. Anyway, not the point. I didn't see La La Land until I think I moved down here. I think I watched it with Ashley right when we moved down here. So maybe during COVID. So early 2020 was the first time I watched it. I liked it. I'm not the biggest musical guy. There are musicals that I really like. Watching it again this time, and this sort of happened the second time I watched Moonlight, I was like, oh shit, that was really great. That should have won Best Picture. Watching this time, I was like, oh shit, that's really great. Like either one of them winning, I think would have been the right choice. So like the fact that
obviously it was down to those two, right?
Well, maybe, who knows? Yeah, maybe so. I don't even know.
You know what's beautiful about that huge debacle is that no one else remembers any of the other nominees for Best Picture.
I was just thinking about it. I'm sure there are some other big movies, but right now I am blanking.
So, yeah, I mean, okay, so we are doing a musical month, but it does kind of fall perfect in the fact that the Oscars are in the first week of March, and we're releasing this, I believe, the day before the no, the day after the Oscars. So who knows what win? But in talking about musicals and nominating and Academy Awards, we decided to watch one more movie for this review of La La Land. Would you like to tell the audience what we watched, David?
So I came up with the idea to watch Emelia Perez and talk a little bit about it because at this point in the history of Emelia Perez, it has been nominated for 13 Oscars. It had its lead actress, who is actually a trans woman, have a huge controversy. I still wasn't able to look up, like, were her tweets from prior to transitioning or not? Because I feel
I
like
think
that.
it was something that she said like very recently at one of the neighboring award shows.
Well, no. She has a ton of tweets where she has said things that people have found offensive. I don't remember what they are, but I remember seeing one joke online where it was like, I feel sort of left out because she didn't make fun of Indian people. And then someone quote tweeted, I got you. And they have a picture of a tweet where she said something like offensive about Indian people too.
Oh wow,
Like,
she hit all the
so,
marks.
and I don't really want to talk about like that aspect of it. I think we'll talk about the movie later on. The movie had its own controversy for the fact that a lot of people think it's garbage, which
Right.
is not necessarily my take of it. I thought it was a wild ride, and we're going to talk about that at the end because once again, this is about La La Land, baby. So we gotta keep that moving.
Yeah.
What did you think of La La Land? You haven't even talked about it yet.
No, I mean, I was kind of withholding on watching it for a long time because I'm one of those really annoying cunts that when things are like really popular, I'm just like, you know what, probably not for me. That's why I still
We call
never
that
I've
the Inception rule.
yeah, well, I've never watched Game of Thrones for that reason. But yeah, I mean, I like to watch the rated R version of Game of Thrones, but the the concept of La La Land was like the ending was spoiled to me like pretty soon after it came out. I don't even know how, but someone was like, "Yeah, they had to choose between fame and love and they chose fame." And I was like, "Well, that fucking sucks. I don't want to watch this anymore." And
That is
so
a really poor reading of the end of this movie.
it really was. And I just like I said I was living in LA at the time. I just moved to Atlanta soon after. And part of the reason that why LA didn't work out for me is cuz the manager that I had at the time kept telling me, "Hey, your girlfriend, who's my wife now, is holding you back. You need to break up with her to get like an actual like step up in this industry. Like you got to kind of go in there ready to I hate to say this, but she was basically telling me you got to go in there ready to fuck whoever wants to be fucked. And if you're not willing to do that, then there's no hope for you here, you
Well,
know?"
didn't you tell her like, "Hey, I can have a girlfriend and still do that"?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would have a girlfriend very very long. So, i- hearing that's what the movie was about, I was like, maybe that's going to hit a little too close to home at that. And I think everything happens for a reason cuz watching it now and I mean, I've been with Taylor for over 10 years. We've been married for 3 and we have a kid on the way now. And so
Spoiler
I'm com-
alert.
I'm committed. Watching it now and the ending and everything like that, it just really like I was like, wow, I made the right choice. Like in my own decision making. Like it was like a very lethargic
Cathartic.
cathartic, thank you. It was a very cathartic watch for me because I was just like, wow, not that I had any doubts, but it was just like really it did hit close to home, but in like the best of ways. And especially that ending where it's like watching their lives of like what it could have been if they stayed together was very emotional. I didn't cry at all for the entire movie. And even when she sits down with her new husband in Seb's and watches him play the piano, I was just like, the movie ends here. That's fine. Okay. And then the last scene montage happens. And by the end of it, I turned to my wife, who was in tears. and I was in tears, and I was just like, "Fuck," you know. And so yeah, the ending hit me like a ton of bricks, but I think for me in like the best way possible.
By the way, I looked up the Best Picture nominees. These two, Moonlight and La La Land, might not be my top like three. So, Arrival,
Oh God.
Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, Lion, which may be my favorite movie from that year, and then Manchester by the Sea, which I have not yet seen, but I've heard.
Oh, we should do Manchester by the Sea. I haven't seen it either.
And we're gonna do Lion 1 December for sure. Because
Yeah.
talk about movies that make me cry.
Well, I agree with you. I think Lion and Arrival topple La La Land and Moonlight.
And then Hell or High Water, I'd maybe put right below Moonlight and La La Land, I think. Really
Hmm.
great though, but
Yeah.
not of my Taylor Sheridan trilogy. Maybe that's my least favorite of the three. Sicario,
Isn't
Wind
Taylor
River.
Sheridan the one who did Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wrote Sicario, directed and wrote Wind River, and then wrote Hell or High Water, I think.
Well, now that you've completely cut my emotional explanation of how the movie made me feel, go. We'll put Amelia Perez on the back burner and start with La La Land.
You know what I want to do? I don't know how well this will go over, but I just thought it'd be funny. So I want to do a couple trivia questions for you. So the opening scene takes place on an overpass.
Mm-hmm.
What other movie have we done where we've seen that overpass?
As a main point,
Yeah, it's a feature. It's a pretty big feature of the movie.
is it 28 Days Later?
That takes place in the
That
UK.
takes place in the UK. You see where my mind went, though, right? Like
Yeah,
post-apocalyptic. Was I correct in thinking it was like a post-apocalyptic thing?
You know what might be throwing you off right now is in La La Land, the cars aren't moving. And in the movie I'm thinking of, the cars are moving quite fast. Some would say they'd have to move a certain speed in order.
Is it Speed?
It's speed, yeah. So
Okay.
that is the jump from Speed, that
That's the
overpass.
jump from Speed? Okay. That's
Yes,
cool.
which is pretty sweet. This is the third movie that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone have done together. Do you know the other two?
One is like Love, Drugs,
Crazy
or
Stupid Love.
Crazy Stupid
I'll
Love,
give
yeah.
you that one because I figured you get that one, even though I don't know if what you just said counted.
Yeah, Crazy Stupid Love with Steve Carell. I know, and Kevin Bacon.
Love and Other Drugs is with Anne Hathaway and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen that one. And then, oh man, no. What's the other one?
Gangster Squad, which is a very forgettable movie. So
I've never seen Gangster Squad.
my wife was like, she's like, is it just Crazy Stupid Love, the other one they've done? I was like, yeah, that's just those two. And then I looked it up and it was Gangster Squad too. There are 3 Oscar winners in this movie. Can you name them?
Oh, this is a whole fucking trivia thing. Emma Stone.
Correct.
Okay. Or at the time, or just in general?
Let's just say now.
Okay. Emma Stone, J.K. Simmons,
Yes.
and I see. It's always the fucking last one that gets me. What's the last one?
It's John Legend for the song from the movie Selma with Common. That's why I did it, because I was like, oh, it's kind of funny. You got the exact ones I thought you would get.
It's funny because if I could have just thought of John Legend in that moment, I would have just said his name for lulz.
Also, and this, I won't ask this as a trivia question, but so Emelia Perez had 13 nominations, which people were like, that's fucking insane. La La Land had 14.
Oh.
And there are only 2 other movies that had 14, Titanic and All About Eve. La La Land is the only movie with 14 nominations to not win Best Picture. Although technically it kind of did win Best Picture for like 2.5 minutes, according to some trivia. I don't think that counts though. But so yeah, that was the trivia corner. That's probably the one and only time we'll do it. But it did go as well as I expected. I think a lot of what I want to talk about globally about this movie happens at the end. So I kind of think it would just make sense to go through it, because I think the movie is like this whimsical journey. The music reminds me almost of like a classic Disney movie throughout. and then you just get this emotional gut punch at the end, but in such a satisfying way. I know a lot of people see the ending as sad. There's this Emma Watson quote, and there's the very end of it that I think really kind of is a little bit hopeful, or uplifting, or should make you feel better if you're have been in a similar situation like that. So I think it would make sense to just start. I think opening with that musical number on the highway is pretty great. But what it did make me realize is that there's not a lot of singing in this musical. A lot of the songs are just dancing, and they have a lot of scenes where it's instrumental.
What's interesting about this is that not all the songs that are played in this musical are originally made for this musical. So at times you get it kind of being like a jukebox musical a little bit.
Right.
But then it's funny because a musical usually has music that is outside of the realm of reality in a movie, where it's people are singing and dancing, but it's just a way to convey emotion from one character to the other in the moment. They're not understanding that they're singing and dancing in front of each other, right?
Right.
But in this movie, whenever there is a well-known song, a jukebox song, it's used as, oh, people know that they're singing in this movie. Like when they're at the party and it's Flock of Seagulls.
So it's Take On Me, and then I Ran Flock of Seagulls right afterwards, which is just two back-to-back bangers from the 80s.
Of course. But see, that was used within the realm of that reality as oh, they're singing, right?
Correct.
But then all the original music is your typical musical break into song to convey emotion.
Yeah, so this movie does this thing. So we were talking about doing the movie Begin Again, and you and I were having a discussion about whether that is a musical. And this movie does that thing where Begin Again has music in the movie, but it is not played as if people randomly burst into song to move a plot forward in real life. Where instead in Begin Again, it's oh, hey, play this song for me. You're going out for a record deal or whatever. So you play the song. There's a concert later on. There's a lot of music, but it all makes sense in the world. Whereas a musical to me is people just break out into song in a way that's not of the real world.
Right. I mean, like every Disney movie ever made.
And so this does both.
Yeah, this is both.
And it's almost 50-50 almost. It's not that close, but it's it's pretty does both
Also,
pretty a lot.
Does J.K. Simmons have an affinity for jazz?
Well, Damien Chazelle directed both.
Oh, okay.
So and he actually,
this.
yeah, and J.K. Simmons, he cast him first. When they
just as the smallest part possible.
And they thought it was a funny joke that he hates jazz in this movie and only wants classical songs play. Because that scene is kind of funny in that people that go to that type of restaurant want to hear the songs that Ryan Gosling's playing. They don't want to hear the other stuff.
Right.
The other stuff's hokey, and what Ryan Gosling was playing sets the mood for a romantic.
No, 100%. And even what he said later on is oh, jazz criminally is used as a talk over background music.
Right. Elevator music.
Right. And then, but sometimes you want to feel that kind of emotional spur that comes with it. When he was playing the Christmas carols, I turned to Taylor and I was just God, I'd much rather hear anything else that he would be playing other than this. If I was a patron at the restaurant.
I might actively complain. I mean, what the fuck is going on?
Hey, if you play Jingle Bells one more time, I will burn this place to the ground.
J.K. Simmons walks by and is thank you for firing that guy for playing Jingle Bells. I wrote down the note before we move on from the opening. I was how did they shoot that? Because it looked like there was real traffic surrounding it. So that was the HOV lane. So they were able to just cut off that lane.
That's cool.
That. And use that.
That was the whole fucking overpass. That whole overpass was the HOV?
Yeah, and it only goes one way, I think, and they made it look like it went both. Also, apparently a fairly dangerous dance sequence because someone could have just fallen over the edge and died.
I want to know how they coordinated people from closest to the camera, 150 people down the overpass. Because to get everyone to dance on the marker, they'd have to have all the speakers, simultaneously playing at the same time perfectly, and then hide the speakers in each car, I guess.
Well, so the choreographer was Mandy Moore, not that one, a different one, and
Oh,
she was apparently laying underneath a car shouting directions at people.
but that was that was like a lot of people.
No, I agree. Yeah, so it's still I they also said that logistically they had practiced it on like a flat surface and then now it's like a curved
Yeah.
surface that like goes down, so they're like it made it a little bit more complicated. It's very intricate, very cool for only a thing that lasts like, it's just that little opening, and it's one of the things I guess you remember from the movie, but it's not like the big takeaway from it. But it was a huge production, probably the biggest production piece.
It's an opening that you like really remember. That it cements in your head very well. Like this is the movie I'm kind of watching, and it sets the tone for the rest of the movie too. That it's like it's these people in LA, and it's like, do I have a chance to make it? It's like the whole thing of like what our two mains are thinking, but then it's interesting because when it concentrates on Sebastian and Mia, it's like a very close and personal understanding of what everyone's going through in LA. But the
Yeah.
beginning is like, this is what everyone is going through in LA. I love him being impatient with her and then she flicks him off in traffic.
And then she says, "Oh, you know what? I should go. Like,
Um,
this is my fault."
but then when they meet again at the bar, I was like, oh, does she recognize him from that? I'm like, but there's no way. First of all, a couple weeks has gone by, and if I ever flicked off someone in traffic and I literally like ran into them again that same day, I would never know.
Yeah, you still wouldn't know. They remember you though.
Oh,
They'd
you
come
think
after you.
so? Yeah.
So she goes to her first audition where she's crying and someone answers a phone call, which apparently happened to Gosling in real life, and so he like told them about it and they put it in the script.
Crazy.
She was so good in all the auditions, and I've seen a ton of like, you see this audition footage of famous people like after the fact, and it never looks good. It never is great. And obviously this is a major Hollywood movie, so it's actually being shot that way, so it does look better. But she's fantastic in the auditions, and these people do not give a shit about it.
It's so sad because, I worked in casting in LA and Atlanta. And like when she's telling Gosling, like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like it's at the end of the movie where she's given up and she's like, I don't want to be crying while they're laughing at me. I don't want a fucking intern to come in when I'm mid monologue. Like all those things break you as an actor. And I'm just like, there is a courtesy of casting where at least any of the productions that I was casting, we never did that. And I think if I did that, my boss would kill me if I did that. Right. And I think I'm not saying like all of this is perfect. Like I'm sure it actually happens, but I think the movie a bit exaggerated it for what it was.
Yeah, but at the same time, like it shows like a good casting director at the end, right? By
Yeah,
the
but it,
way,
it made those feel like those were rare, and the bad ones felt like that was common.
this did remind me, like this movie's kind of in concert with Mulholland Drive. This one being hopeful, like it, like
Oh yeah,
both Hollywood spitting you out, but this one having a little bit more hope, I guess. So she does the audition and then she leaves. The next dance number or singing number we get is the Roommates song, which I think is really great too.
I thought it was gonna be like a song where it's so funny. Before we see the first roommate, Taylor's like, this takes me out of the movie. She'd have like 3 or 4 roommates, and then they come in. She's like, there we go. But I thought this song was gonna be like the Sound of Music song. There's something with Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were gonna talk about Emma Stone's Mia, like, oh, she's so busy all the time, right? But I love one, they did not do that, and two, it was more about the shit you got to go through in Hollywood.
And like why you need to go to this party, like it'll help you out. And the whole thing's basically a oneer. She decides not to go, and then she changes her mind and comes out of and the way they're all marching down the street together, I really liked. Gets to the party, and as you've talked about, I think on the Swingers episode, party kind of sucks. They all do. No one wants to be there. Everyone's there just to like hopefully get a job,
The guy
some
who's like,
connection.
so the Goldilocks and the three little bears, but from the three bears perspective, I was like, that hit home too hard.
So
It's
then
like, they really have they say I really have a knack for world building.
that was a great line. I think that's a different party, but yeah, the great line. And then there's the cool shot of her like walking through the party in slow motion, and then it speeds up. Then the camera work is one of the most noticeable things about this movie.
Yeah.
I legitimately almost threw up when he does the thing in the pool.
I was like, when did the camera guy get in the pool?
Yeah,
Like, I'm like, what the fuck? When did we get here? You know?
so then her car gets towed. She's walking by, hears Jazz out of a club, decides to walk in, and it cuts to Gosling flicking her off again, and we get to see the entire thing from his perspective, and I thought was awesome.
I thought a cool thing too was his was much faster and less detailed day to day sort of thing, like we saw with her, which kind of told me that she was really the main character of the movie.
But he's also like a frantic character. Like his dialogue with his sister's really fast, like rat a tat tat, kind of like
Yep.
Jazz, I guess.
Wow.
And the way he's watching this old place where he got screwed out of this business. It is a lot of like setup. His scene, all of that is just to set up his character and what his dream is and his growth is going to be.
Yeah.
But you have Ryan Gosling doing it, so it's like funny and entertaining, and he's charming the whole time.
His character kind of reminds me a little bit of him in Drive, mixed with his character. Wait, hold on. Mixed with his character in Crazy Stupid Love, where he has at the times when he's talking about Jazz, he has the seriousness of the driver, but he has like the wit and the charm of his character in Crazy Stupid Love. But he's not like in Crazy Stupid Love, he's kind of a dick, like he's kind of a douche. But this, he's like more genuine. Like he comes off as real genuine to me.
You know, everyone, there was that sensitive boyfriend Ryan Gosling meme a while back.
Yeah.
He actually plays more like kind of assholes, like bad guys in movies than he does like good guys.
Yeah.
So La La Land, he's not that great of a guy. The Big Short, he's an asshole. He's funny. Only God Forgives, he's a horrible character. Place Beyond the Pines, he's cool, but he's a shithead.
Yeah.
and dies in a spoiler, dies in a pretty bad way. All good things, think he's an abuser. Crazy Stupid Love, he's a good guy. Drive, he's the hero, but Blue Valentine,
Oof.
yeah. And then Lars and the Real Girl, he's weird. Half Nelson, he's I think a heroin addict, but he's a teacher. Fracture, obviously the hero of that. And then The Notebook, a lot of people don't like that character in The Notebook and what it represents. He's a little stalkerish, whatever. So,
but I think The Notebook probably cemented him in that sensitive boyfriend sort of role, especially when it first came out, because everyone kind of turned a blind eye to the problematics that character had. Anyways, I think he was quite charming in this movie. I think like I love the line, "I got you a runner," and he goes, "I don't need a runner." She goes, "Would it help if I told you Miles Davis pissed on it?" He goes, "No." Did he?
did he?
Yeah, and his building his relationship with his sister, and she wants to set him up with this girl, and he's like, "I don't want to be set up with this girl." She writes it on the. This is great, right? They never say that he's in trouble with money, like right on the nose. But she writes this number. He turns it over. It's an eviction notice, and he throws it on the ground. Right.
Yeah.
So, or it's a past due notice, right? And he throws it on the ground. And I was just like, everything in this is so cool, even down to the color schemes and the production design of this whole thing. Like, she comes out in a blue dress when she wants to go to the party, and it's just perfectly like blue is her color throughout the whole film. I should have watched this again and took note if he was more of a burnt orange Like his color schematic was more like a
She also has that,
hotter.
but she also has that yellow dress too, which they like made a point of using on her.
I wonder if it's like he was more warm color, she was more cool tones, and then as the movie came to the end, they kind of switched. I should have paid more attention to that, but
By the way, the director said that the character of Sebastian is more of a dick, like on the page, but when you have Ryan, like you can kind of see like the kid come through, like when he's talking, because of the charm. When he's talking about jazz, it comes off less snobbish and comes off more earnest. I mean,
like
it's a fine line.
you like
You like
jazz.
jazz? So her car gets towed. She goes into the thing, and then we see Ryan's POV. He goes to J.K. Simmons, and the guy's like, "No free jazz." He can't help himself. The between them, the dialogue between them, he's like, "All right, yeah, that's a mutual decision. Yeah, decision made by me." And then he has to play this shitty music. She watches him. He plays his own thing. Immediately gets fired, and he just walks right through her. So when they see each other again, he's like, "Okay, I remember you. I was a little curt."
A little Kurt. Yeah. I just kept thinking like when they saw each other at the 80s party, I'm like, "Oh, do they recognize each other from the traffic incident or is this the thing?" I was like when he said Kurt, I was like, "Oh, it's the thing." And I'm like, "Oh god, I want someone to tell them that they were the people who flicked each other off in traffic." But then yeah, telling requesting
Iran,
Iran was so good.
just to fuck with him.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no point in saying this except just so the '80s party starts like the spring. So winter was before this. The last thing in winter is her doing an audition where she's just like, "No, Jamal, you be tripping," which is just out of nowhere, like almost a non sequitur, just made me laugh. So makes him play Iran. Then he's like, "Yeah, I was Kurt." She's like, "Kurt," and he's like, "Okay, I was an asshole." And then she's talking to the world building guy, and she's like, "Can you get my keys?" And then we get to
Oh, one of the best jokes in the movie. What car is it? It's a Prius. He looks down at the keys and they're all Priuses, which at that time, yes, everyone in LA did own a Prius.
well, then also he's like talking about the key fob thing to your throat, and he's like, "Does it give you cancer?" She's like, "I think it gives you cancer, but you find your car faster, so it kind of evens out."
It's true though. It actually works.
And I don't know that it gives you cancer. Maybe we'll find out years from now. And then you get, I think probably like the most iconic scene, this like Twilight dance. It's a little bit of singing, but mostly like dancing.
I mean, it's the poster.
Correct. So obviously a great scene. I don't know what else we could say about it besides 10 out of 10 stars. It was good.
This whole thing, let's just kind of quickly move through, right? She has a boyfriend. We know this because he texts her or calls her when she's showing up late to his place. And from that scene. And then they make a thing about going to the Rialto to watch
Rebel Without a
the
Cause.
James
That
Dean movie. Yes. She isn't able to go. Here's what's so crazy about this. Now I just thought about this. She's not able to go and almost stands him up because she has dinner with her boring boyfriend and his boring
his
brother.
boring millions of dollars that he's going to get because he's an investment banker and la da da. Seems like a great guy, honestly.
um I I only know him from American Horror Story.
He's also in The Big Short.
Oh, he was also in The Big Short?
Yeah, he's him and the other guy, like they're the two like
Oh
younger
shit! Yeah,
guys
you're
that's
right.
short.
You're right. He was also
Also,
in
it's Ryan
American Horror
Gosling.
Story. Yeah,
Yeah.
also with Ryan Gosling. Not American Horror Story though. Yeah, and so she hears the jazz on the speakers, and she just has like, "Hey, I gotta go. I guess I'm breaking up with you. This is too boring for me." Um, kind of rude, but okay. And then she meets him at the showing of Rebel Without a Cause, which I
And
thought was a
then
great scene.
and it immediately breaks.
Then they go to the Griffith Park Observatory, which is also a really great scene.
You did skip some stuff though, like the WB lot stuff where they're walking around And then she's like, first of all, she tells him about the audition. She's like, yeah, it was kind of like Dangerous Minds meets the OC. And then when she gets the call back, she's like, well, actually, it's more like Rebel Without a Cause now that she's like excited about it, which she gets excited about it. And then later on, when she goes to that audition, she gets to say half a line. And the guy's like, thank you. And she's just like, so fucking over it. Like, they called her back, and I don't know, is it a different guy casting this time? He's just like,
I don't
clearly,
know.
you're not the look I want for this, because he doesn't
Right.
even let her read.
Right, exactly. It's more like the look. It's maybe even someone like right before, like they have an obligation to do everyone, right? But maybe the person right before that
Was
shows
it?
up nailed it and then they don't care. Was something I read, or maybe we watched it in a movie or something, but there was this line someone was like, when you walk into a casting room, right, an audition, everyone in that room is rooting for you to be the one that they want because they want their job to be done, right? So you would never have a group of people in a room rooting for you more than in an audition. And I just thought, like, man, if someone told me that when I was in LA auditioning, that would have given me a lot of confidence because you do think that the world is against you whenever you do go in.
They're never gonna choose me.
Exactly. So if you think, hey, they really want it to be me because they want to get this job done and I want this job. So it's like it puts you with the confidence of like, hey, you just have to do a good job and then they'll choose you. And that's a lot. I don't know. That's helpful. But fuck it. I'm not in that world
So,
anymore.
so then after this, she talks about hating jazz, and then she's like, "What about Kenny G and elevator music?" First of all, I just want to say I've heard Kenny G interviewed quite a bit. He's a really cool guy, so we need to stop making fun of him in movies and stuff.
Apparently my mom dated Kenny G.
No way, really?
I don't want to say too much about it because I don't know how much of it was real and how much, or maybe my mom was getting catfished. I don't know.
Okay, well, we should. I have more questions off air, so let's
Sure.
deal with it then. So then, after she leaves, we get the City of Stars on the pier thing, which is really cool. Just like a quick him dancing with an older black couple for a little bit, stealing the woman, and just beautifully shot. And then the audition that sucks. We meet Greg. This is another Ryan Gosling stealing a woman from what seems to be a pretty great guy, a
you
pretty
know
great
what's
rich guy.
you know what's funny? It's like I just don't like Greg, but then her new husband at the end of the movie, I was like, actually, I kind of like him a lot.
So that is the main star from That Thing You Do, which was like a 1996 Tom Hanks directed film.
Mm.
And I guess Damien Chazelle like loved that movie, and so he chose him. And then Emma Stone and Gosling were also like just quoted the movie to him all the time. So that's a. Have you seen That Thing You Do?
No,
That Thing You Do is a great movie.
I don't think I
So
have, but yeah.
it's a great one. We'll do it. So, but that's why that guy got chosen, I think, or at least part of it. So the movie, little like hand holding, very cute. Movie breaks, and then we go to Griffith Observatory. Griffith or Griffin? I don't know. Griffith. That thing is that not closed
Griffith.
Is that not closed at midnight? How are they just able to walk in there? This is just this dreamlike sequence.
Not only is it like might have been closed and they just walked in there, but that thing is always fucking packed. And for it to like, oh, we just have it to ourselves. How nice.
But that is like the magical nature of the movie, right? And how like LA is magical. You can have these moments. And also it's pretty cool. There's once again no dialogue, just dancing, the kiss, them falling and catching each other. So it's great. And then we get summer, which it being summer being the time when they're in love and together, and then you have like 500 Days of Summer, which we've done on this, I thought was pretty funny. So he honks, and the roommate's like, "Is that going to happen every time?" And she just looks back lovingly and says, "I think so." And it's just funny because you just imagine like a woman getting honked at to come outside seems like the most like unromantic thing, but she's just like, "Oh, I love the way he just honks and doesn't come to the door."
I love how he just goes down a one-way road and he has to like reverse as the truck coming the right way is like up his ass about it.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to Griffith Griffith Observatory for a quick second. When he throws her up and they're dancing among the stars in silhouette, didn't that remind you of like those early live action Disney movies?
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, like Mary Poppins almost a
like
little
Mary
bit.
Poppins almost. But it goes back to what you were saying about how that beginning number was very like live action Disney movie esque, you know?
Not the beginning number, not so much, but it's just a lot of the score felt like that. It just felt like,
Oh, I wonder if it wanted you to get into that kind of mind frame where like this is a classic love story, and at the end of this movie they're gonna be together and be in love, but also, hey, this is an adult world, you're an adult now, this is the reality of things. Like, I kind of wonder if they kind of were playing with that sort of feeling.
yeah, I mean, yeah, possibly. So then we meet John Legend. The camera cutting to her dancing back and forth, her dancing, him playing.
I've seen the behind the scenes of that.
Yeah, everyone has now. That's one of those things that's like so over, like, that was like a reel that everyone saw, like if you're into movies, if your algorithm allows it. So then we meet John Legend and he like wanted him to do something. It's kind of vague, and she's like, "Why were you weird with him?"
I feel like the John Legend showing up playing that character is I felt the equivalency of when I saw Justin Timberlake in Inside Llewyn Davis.
Well, so John Legend said he's like, trying to diversify a little bit, get into movies, and he's like, "What easier way than just basically to play myself in a movie? Play a version of myself." Except what's funny is, so Gosling going into this could play the guitar, but John Legend could play the piano, but not the guitar. They both had to learn like each other's instrument in order to
That's
do this
awesome.
movie.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and Gosling, they had a hand double for him, and he did so well they didn't need to use it. He trained for so
I
long.
wondered about that. Also, do both Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling sing that well?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Hopefully, no AI was used to enhance their voices, because that could have
Yeah, that's frowned
derailed
upon.
things. Yeah, if
Can
that
you
could have gotten out.
Isn't it crazy how AI is like a thing now, but like 6 years ago it wasn't?
That's how technology works. It gets better. You mean like people
No,
hating the use of AI?
no. Well, yeah, but I'm just saying like that's not that like when that movie was made, AI wasn't even like a concept, like a thought to be used
It
in
was a
that way.
concept in Terminator 2 and like movies like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then we hear this kind of like almost the inciting incident of the rest of the movie is he hears a phone call with her mom where she's like defending him, like, yeah, he doesn't have a job, but he's working on openness, he'll be fine. So then he goes to Keith, and the acting hit in his eyes when he's told, yeah, you get 1,000 a week plus a cut of like tickets and merch, and he's just like, oh fuck yeah, like that's so
Yeah,
much money.
yeah. Do you did you feel the representation of when she was talking to her mom and he was just staring at the leak stain on her ceiling?
As what?
Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, they lingered up so far along on it. Was he just like, hey, for me, it spoke to me in such a way that it's like, hey, I need to get my act together so I can take care of things like this for her.
Yeah, basically. What's funny is he decides to do the thing that he thinks she wants, and it's
Right.
the thing that drives them away from each other,
And it's also funny because she starts to do the thing that he told her that she could do.
and it gets her dream
And it gives
basically.
her her dream. And then, well, even at the end of the movie, again, when she quits and she goes back home, he is the one that forces her to go back to the audition and, gets her famous basically.
So yeah, she owes him everything.
Well, no, I mean she
So
kind of does and then fucking breaks up with I don't know. There's something to say about that.
no, there is, but not in the way you're saying it. So the next we get they sing City of the Stars together, and then there's another montage of them just like in love, hanging around the city, doing a bunch of things. And then it's like, oh, he's gone all the time. And like he's having like, and then we get a full John Legend performance in the middle of the movie.
That
This
was
movie
awesome. That was so sweet.
But this movie does this thing where it's like it has like a ton of like montages, a ton of like dance scenes, but then like when we're in like a scene, like the next scene that's really like important is the fight scene. We are in that scene. It feels like we are there for the entirety of it. It's like not truncated at all. It's like we sit and stew in like the fight.
I know we're saving the Amelia Perez stuff for the very end. I just want to say though, I think a big fault in Amelia Perez is that if that same fight scene were to happen to Amelia Perez, it would have been sung through it. And it just really doesn't hit you.
Why do you care if anybody likes you?
But instead,
You're an actress. What are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know. It probably would have.
I just don't think it would have. I just don't think it hits the same way. And I think that was Amelia Perez's biggest fault is that they don't let the audience sit with the emotion
You'd
of the
have a really
scene.
you'd have a really impactful scene, and then someone would start singing. You're like, fuck, guys, come on.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was like a mistake that in this movie in La La Land they didn't do. Like you said, they really have you sit in it. And what I really like about this fight is that it's not like what either of them said to each other was untrue or even that hurtful, but it's like that extra little thing that he had to say on top of all the other things that he said.
It's
And that
the last line. Maybe you liked me when I was on my ass because it made you feel better about yourself.
it's the twist of the knife, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's more in the wrong here because her sort of getting upset is like, well, hey, why are you giving up on your dream? And he's like, because I thought that's what you wanted. She's like, I never said that. Like, I know, I don't know where you got that from. You got that from
Also,
that
it
phone
would be,
call.
I don't know, on her end though, doesn't she realize that it would be much easier for him to open up a jazz club once he became more famous and a bigger name
Or
with
just
his
saved up
band?
money. Like, he needs to save up money.
Yeah, it's like, what's a couple of years though, really?
Yeah, what's funny is she's like, what is this going to be, more months? And I was like, well, how long has it been? Has it been like a couple months? Like, you guys couldn't handle it for 2 months? The timeline is because of montages and the summer and all that. It is a little, how long have we been doing this for?
I felt like it
Technically.
was like 2 months. And
Well,
she's
that would make
freaking
sense.
out that it might be 4 months. And I'm like, you
She's
can
so
chill.
needy. She's so needy.
And I'm like, also like when she almost stood up for the Rebel Without a Cause date, it was kind of like a parallel of him not going to her one woman show, right?
They weren't dating at the time. Now they're in a relationship, living together. And I wrote down, I was like, oh, I guess they're done now after the fight. And then he misses her opening night, and because he has this photo shoot that he forgot about. So, but here's the thing: his sister shows up, and then she can just hear people shitting on her. So when he gets there late, she's pissed, but it's like she says it's over, but you almost don't even know what's over. Like, you can't tell, is she more mad that he wasn't there or more mad of like how horrible she thinks it went?
Probably the latter, but
I
then
think
took it
so.
out and then took it out all on him because he was there.
Because also that's bad, but like at what comes to fruition is they both of them care more about their dreams than sticking it out with each other. Like, that's not their dream, isn't to be together. Their dream is their individual dreams that they have.
Which is crazy because I just felt like if they were a bit more patient with each other, they could have made it all work, but they don't have
Well,
the.
here's the thing, jumping a little bit of ahead, is they sort of break up when she goes to France, and then it says 5 years later, and 5 years later she's a 3-year-old. How quickly did she jump in the sack with another dude, man?
I mean, if they're over, like they're not Rachel and Ross on a break over, they're like over and over, right? And she goes to Paris. I mean, I give her like, I say anything after 9 months in Paris is fair game.
I mean, but the thing is, so she has a 3, that baby is 3 at least. I'll say like it just had that girl just had her birthday, so she's a 3-year-old. Add 9 months, so then she has a year and 3 months of time to find that dude and like marry him. Unless
I
they
was
had that baby, did they have that baby out of wedlock?
I was surprised at being like, oh, holy, like, at the beginning of Endgame when they flash forward 5 years and everyone in the audience is like, whoa, right?
Mhm.
I felt like that. I was like 5 years later. I was like, whoa, that's a long time. But now that you say that, that's not a long time.
It's not. And she moved on pretty quickly is all I'm saying. It would have been funny if just at the end when she looks back at him and smiles and then like Ava Mendez walks on the stage and gives him a kiss or something. He's like, I moved on too. I'm doing just fine without you.
It's also crazy too because the thought that he eventually called it Sebs, because there's a whole scene in this movie that we didn't really talk about where he wanted to call it Chicken on a Stick because of some fucking jazz player ate chicken, whatever. But then she was like, "You should call it Sebs." I even made like a little logo with the music note as an apostrophe, and he's like, "Oh, that's clever." And he's like, "But I'm still calling it Chicken on a Stick." And you find that he actually takes her advice and calls it Sebs, uses the exact same logo she created for
When
him.
you see her face when she first sees it, like is great acting.
When she walks in with her husband and he's like, I'm going to grab us a table. And she looks up. In the split second she looks up, I went out loud. He named it Sebs. I'm like, I know he did. Because how else, like, she did not look up and she saw chicken on a stick and had that kind of reaction,
It
you
would have
know?
been like, oh, this fucking idiot named it chicken on a stick.
But it was packed. It was packed. So you have to think, wait, is him naming it Sebs, taking her advice, the thing that made him successful in this? Just like him going to Boulder and getting her to go back to the audition is the thing that made her successful in this.
Yeah, I don't know. So casting director calls him looking for her. He goes to her and honks, and she's like, "I'm not going." And his like screaming reaction of what is so great.
I'd like to think that that wasn't rehearsed and that genuine shock off of Emma Stone was like a genuine
Or she
reaction.
just, yeah, maybe she didn't know he was gonna go. Oh, you went that way with it, and then she's like, "Maybe I'm not good enough. I don't want to do it anymore. It hurts too much." And he's like, "You're a fucking baby.
Yeah.
Like you're a baby." And he says, "I'll be here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Either you're gonna be out here or you're not." And then when he almost drives off as she walks up, she's like, "I brought coffee." He's like, "Oh, that's great. Okay." He had like thought that she wasn't gonna be out there.
How long is that drive?
Well, so it wasn't Bowl. It was Nevada. So
Oh, not that bad. Like
yeah,
6 hours?
so not horrible. It was a 5:30 audition, so 8 a.m. I mean, they had enough time. So does the audition. This like just tell us a story, and she sings a song. So clearly she was not listening to them saying tell a story. It's not what they asked for.
Also, if she just because that musical number didn't happen in the reality of this movie, so she just talked about that story about her aunt in Paris. I was like,
Boring.
ring, whatever.
So apparently she sang that song live, and the guy that did the score, I think it's Horowitz, was just in another room playing to the way she was singing, so following her lead
That's cool.
because she like talks some of it, sings some of it.
I guess that's cool. I know nothing about musical theory, so that's cool.
It's just the theory. And then afterwards, they're like, what are we? She says, "Where are we?" And I'm like, "Bitch, you ended everything. What do you mean? Where are we?"
It is kind of weird how she asked that and mutually they're like, we're not together anymore.
Yeah. So when she goes into that audition, she's still like unsure if she's gonna get it, and they basically tell her like, "Yeah, we're building a part around you. Just tell us a story." So the casting director, the casting director has decided you're the girl, but I'm recording you to sell you to whoever I'm having to, to the director of like, hey, this is the girl. You need to choose her. It's almost like they wanted an unknown, and I found her, and now I have to convince the director that you are the unknown that he's looking for.
I guess I maybe there are also a couple more girls that they asked to tell them a story.
Maybe. So after this is the epilogue. I love the little callback to when she goes into the coffee shop that she used to work at.
Yeah.
And the same thing. The coffee's on the house. She's like, no, I can't do that. Then she has a 3-year-old. She's staying at the cafe. Was that the Chateau de
Marmont.
Momo? I looked into staying there. It's kind of expensive.
So I had dinner there once, and I don't know if I've ever told this story on the pod. So I go to Chateau Marmont with my manager. She's like, "Oh, we're gonna meet some people there at the time." And you know that girl Mila
Mila Jovovich.
Jovovich? So she wasn't there, but her cousin was.
Great,
And
great
yeah,
story.
yeah. And so her cousin was there, and then a couple more people were there, and this like really good looking couple were sitting next to me. And so I started striking up a conversation with the guy. And I was so stupid looking back on it now because who am I, right? Who am I? And so I started telling him like, yeah, I graduated from Ringling College of Art and Design. I majored in film. I wrote this student film that I thought was really cool, and I told him all about it. Like I went into detail about my student film.
Can't wait to hear who this is.
And so he's like, yeah. I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I play music. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. What 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 do you like? Are you in a band? He's like, yeah, I'm in a band. I play the guitar.
Just who it is.
And later on, I learn what his name is. I go back to Taylor, and I'm like, yeah, I was sitting next to the guy. I told him about the night, and I was like, yeah, this band Cobra Starship.
Oh, that's funny.
And yeah, so apparently I was just talking off the ears of the guy from Cobra Starship.
I don't think I
being
would
like-
recognize. I wouldn't recognize who that is either. So
But you know the band, though, right?
by name, and I probably have heard a bunch of their songs.
Yeah,
but
exactly. So I was just boring him with my adolescent.
It wasn't Coheed and Cambria. It wasn't that band.
I love how he was just like, yeah, I play music, and then I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's better than the guy who's like, I'm fucking this guy. What do you mean? Who do I play for? So I mean, that's a good way to be.
A lot of people are like that in LA. Hardly anyone is like
The asshole.
the asshole, you know?
So back to the movie. What I thought was kind of interesting to think about is, Ryan Gosling walks into his club. He walks past a poster of Emma Stone. This whole time, he's been able to follow how great her life is.
Yeah.
And she's been able to hear nothing of him. She has
Right.
no idea what's going on with him. To then she just happenstance, traffic hits. She decides to go to dinner and then go into a jazz club afterwards. The idea of going into a jazz club to have one drink and listen to one song, I was like, insane.
You know, though, I mean, I've done that before. When you're like bar hopping and it's a busy night downtown, sometimes you will just go in there, see what's up, and then leave.
I guess.
I mean, were you in? Oh no, I was gonna say, were you in Chicago with the rest of us? But I think you came.
I came
later.
the next day. Yeah, the next.
But that's exactly what we did. I mean, we went bar hopping. We went down to speakeasies. We would listen to one song and then we'd leave.
It's a lot of work. So she gets there, sees the sign for Sebs, and then locks eyes with him, and we get this sort of this. He plays the song again that we've heard him play so many times, and we get this dreamlike what their life would have been like had they been together.
Yeah. Well, even more so, it's like this fairy tale beginning where instead of blowing past her at the JK, he kisses her passionately, and then from there you see basically the whole movie if everything worked out perfect.
They have a different kid, right? They have the little boy, and
yep.
And yeah, so
the only thing is that they got married and had a kid, but she never became a famous actress, and he never opened up his own club.
But were they happy, right? Because in this dream,
that's the question.
In this dream, she realizes they both would have had to given up, right? And in reality, no, I think they both would have had to, because I think the thought would be if one of them had to give up their dream for the other,
they'd resent the other one forever.
Yeah, it would have ruined their relationship.
But also, her one-woman show was very successful, and everyone showed up, but she never took that extra step into getting to Paris and whatnot. And it's just so interesting. And it's not just like, oh, he decided to make it and that's why it was successful. It was just the idea of it, right? One thing I wanted to talk about before we get too far ahead into this is that what pissed me off the most in this movie, what just boiled my blood, is that he missed her one-woman show for the dumbest photo shoot you could ever fathom.
Yeah, but I mean, he's trying to do what he thinks is the right thing, right?
I know, but like it's just the filmmakers purposely made it feel so stupid. The camera guy,
Bite
right?
your lip. Bite your
Bite
lip.
your lip. He's 2 inches away from Ryan Gosling's. I don't care what kind of fucking lens you have. The picture is of his eyeball, you fucking cunt. Okay?
Well, you got real mad there.
It's 2 cunts in this episode.
And we
But
haven't
yeah.
even talked about Emelia Perez. So the movie ends. Thank you. I had to go for it. So
good.
the movie ends with the dream cutting, her saying, "All right, let's go home." It's very sad, right? And then she walks the door, she looks back, and they share a smile. And to
Yep.
me, that's like a very hopeful end of the movie. And it cuts right there. I guess originally she kept walking out and got in her car, and then it cuts, and they're like, no, it's better. Cut it right here. Because, and Emma Stone has this quote of like, yeah, there's these people in your life that you love, and it doesn't work out, but it doesn't make that relationship any less valuable. And that's what this is. This is that relationship early in your life. It didn't work out for one reason or the other. Not everyone has this, but a lot of people do, where you could have ended up together, but circumstances prevented it, but it also made you the person you are. It like puts you in this direction. And I think like, I don't know, that makes it kind of beautiful to me. And like
That last smile and a wink was like them telling each other, hey,
it's okay.
we made it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's okay. Like this doesn't have to be sad.
Yeah.
We can
No,
be
it's
happy.
a really beautiful movie, but I don't think without that epilogue, that montage at the end, that this movie would be anything of what it actually ended up being.
Correct. That is the point. So really quick before we get to Emelia Perez, I guess both Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling were slated to be in focus, but dropped out. So Margot Robbie and Will Smith took over. So that would have been 4.
Oh, I don't really hear much of what Focus is about.
It's a decent movie altogether.
Okay. All right.
Originally, Miles Teller and Emma Watson were going to be the stars of this movie. Emma Watson had to turn the role down to focus on Beauty and the Beast, and then
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling took the other part. Emma
Because he's just
Stone.
better than Miles Teller. I get it.
I mean, I think Emma Stone's a better actress than Emma Watson, so
I think it worked out.
I think it worked out for everyone.
I just can't imagine Miles Teller and Emma Stone having as good of a chemistry as
You mean Emma Watson?
no. Miles Teller and Emma Stone having as good a chemistry as Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone.
But that would have never been the movie, though. He was going to be in it with Emma Watson.
And that being said, I don't think Ryan Gosling or anyone would have as good as a.
But I think
chemistry.
anyone can have good chemistry with Ryan Gosling, though.
Exactly.
I could make you believe I loved him because I do. Alon, Emelia Perez. What are your overall thoughts?
Oh boy. I think, I really summed it up as I think it did not have to be a musical. The music undercuts the emotion of this movie, and I will say this, at times I felt like I was just watching a made for TV movie. It didn't wow me as much as a 13 nommed Oscar did. It's not like I went in there and I thought, wow, this is The Godfather. This is There Will Be Blood. This is this is La La Land, if we want to compare musicals to musicals, right? I just didn't have that wow factor to me, except for Zoe Saldana. I think Zoe Saldana committed a sense of where I just don't think this movie deserved her commitment to the role.
I don't think they needed to ugly her up in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like,
one of the things that I read about this movie is that it's nominated for music and styling, or hair and makeup. Yeah. And someone was like, that's the nomination that pisses me off the most. I thought that both Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana's hair looked dry and unkempt throughout the entire thing. I was like, well, maybe that's the point.
I think it should win for hair and makeup, because I was astounded when you told me that the actress played the guy in the beginning, and I was like, that was the ugliest human being I've ever seen in my life, like the cartel leader. So that just in and of itself, like that guy was disgusting looking.
Well, his character, her character, before she transitioned, was so appalling to me because that character lacked charm or grace or any sort of like redeemable quality. And then for
Why he was a leader? Like you couldn't like I was like, why? Who's following this dude?
right, it's just there's nothing appealing about him, even if you want to look at him as a bad guy. Then when she transitioned into Amelia Perez, all of a sudden, Amelia Perez is this charming, beautiful, witty kind of like everyone wants to follow and do whatever Amelia Perez wants to do. And it's just like there's just no believability to me that that was the same guy.
I also thought this was a true story for some. I was like,
But
how?
that's the weird part, is that it does have very like true story feelings about it.
Yeah, which I guess it's based on a novel. So some just wild, funny lines that we already talked about off the pod. From penis to vagina in the Thai clinic.
So that song, I was like, is that going to be the worst song in the movie? And I think actually Selena Gomez might have taken the worst song in the movie title.
Musical parts were accompanied with like interpretive dance.
I thought that
So
was
I
cool.
the opening song was Zoe Saldana, where she's talking about like the legal brief that she's writing. Like, is this guy innocent? I was like, what is like? Most of the music did not work for me. Like, it was
It's
catchy,
so
but
it's so funny because I thought that song was one of the things that actually did work for me.
I didn't like almost any of the music because I just thought it was so out there. How much money would it take for you to help a cartel leader get a sex change? I'm thinking 500,000.
It's crazy because once you've been kidnapped and put in a cartel leader van in the middle of bumfuck desert nowhere,
You feel like you have to anyway.
you feel like you have to anyway. They could offer you, hey, it's $12,000, and you're
He
like,
made
yeah, I
it seem like
guess.
she could leave. It was like,
You
no.
you can't leave. What? You showed me your breasts? First of all, how has no one ever seen that this dude has boobs,
He
right?
wears a lot of baggy clothing, I guess.
And then his wife has no idea that he's been 2 years in hormone therapy. I don't know.
Mhm.
There's a lot of parts of this movie that doesn't make sense. And
Another
then,
another great line from Selena
sure,
Gomez. My pussy hurts for you as she then
yeah,
stares directly through the fourth wall into the camera.
I don't get the fourth wall breaks either because Zoe Saldana is the same thing during one of her musical numbers, and I'm just like, don't involve me in this. Don't look at me, please.
So then she starts digging up the bodies. Who's working for her? Like she hire all new security? Like who are these guys? Because it seems like she's still sort of running a mini cartel of guys. She's not doing the
But that's the
drugging.
point, right, of the movie, is that you can change your body, but you can't change your soul. So even though she does all these things to become Amelia Perez, she's still kind of this like controlling, scummy person.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing the movie has a people have a problem with the movie, and I thought was a little like the movie makes her a martyr at the end almost.
Right, because no one ever finds out.
But no, she actually legitimately has like a funeral procession with a statue. Like
Yeah.
she's a legitimate martyr.
She's like in Mexico, in that part of Mexico, she's known as like Saint Amelia Perez.
And so she's helped all these people. And I always have the take of a movie isn't telling you how to feel about a character. If you think a movie's making you feel good about a character, like that, like you can feel however you want. I mean, having a funeral processional at the end of this for her, where everyone's crying, I don't know. It's definitely it's verging on trying to make you feel a certain way. So it is a lot odd. I mean, the idea, like, there's a lot of the ideas in this movie that are pretty interesting. So like when he's having a conversation with his ex-wife about if she ever cheated on her husband, and you like think, oh, he's gonna get really mad about this. I like, oh, that's an interesting scene. Then it cuts into song, like the conversations with the kids, where the kids are like, oh, you smell like my papa. Please don't wear your perfume. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
I actually thought that
once
was a
again.
song
Then
that actually worked.
Yeah, no, yeah, that one was fine.
I also think that not everyone in a musical needs to sing. The doctor, the Tel Aviv doctor that she finds to do the sex operation, I didn't feel like he had to sing. Probably shouldn't. The little kids, not that great. Probably shouldn't sing. Not everyone. Just because you're in a musical, you don't need to fucking sing.
So then there's the song during like the benefit where Zoe Saldana starts pulling this woman's blonde hair and then masturbating with it. I was like, that's a choice. I don't know if it's one I would have made.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Also, like how sexually aroused and exciting she gets talking about all of the different plasties that one can go
Rhinoplasty,
through.
rhinoplasty, yeah. Uh,
What's that?
so
Adam's apple reduction. Yes, 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 yes.
I thought the woman bringing the knife was a really cool plot device. Having her like,
Yeah,
you think she's gonna attack her? Oh, because she knows. It's like, no, I thought my husband was alive and I was about to kill him. Which is also like, all right, so I did a good thing with one of my murders.
that is kind of crazy that it's like through all these people that I've killed, at least I killed one bad dude.
The movie isn't clear on if she killed all these people or if she's helping find everyone who's been killed by a cartel. So a little bit unclear on that. I expected when Gustavo got the shit kicked out of him as the dudes walked away that Gustavo just started singing on the ground. I thought that
Yeah.
would have been funny because it's like the movie's wild anyway. And then I don't know that I ever would have expected this movie to end with her being kidnapped and killed. Like I never saw that coming.
I had that spoiled for me, and now I wish I hadn't.
Because so here's the thing, at the end of the day, this was a very like entertaining, wild ride
Yeah,
that was very weird with music in it. I thought Zoe Saldana was going to start dancing through the bullets to go rescue her
that would have
because it
been
was like,
cool.
why not?
Yeah,
You know,
why
what I mean, why
not?
not? We've done everything. Why couldn't we do this?
Also, Zoe Saldana getting an armada of like all women mercenaries to go get Amelia Perez was a pretty funny touch.
Were they all women?
I thought it was all women. I don't know.
Mm,
Shows how much I was really paying attention to at the end.
towards the end.
No, I can't say that because you know what? I watched this movie, I paid attention to this movie, and I deserve some recognition for doing that. Someone said that on his podcast, Ron Perlman said that his favorite movie of the year by far was Amelia Perez. And not in 1,000 years could I imagine Ron Perlman watching this movie thinking at the end of it, well, that's the best movie of the year by far.
I think Ron Perlman's become pretty woke in his old age. So, I mean, I think that just
Yeah.
explains everything. I don't know. I don't care about. I was just fucking around. I don't really care if Ron Perlman liked the movie or not. I think this movie is exactly what a lot of people say. It's a very divisive movie that I don't understand why people love. I get why people hate it because they think the messaging is one thing. I just think it's like a pretty middle of the road thing that
Yeah.
does not deserve that many nominations. And it's like,
That's how I felt like too. It was just very average, and I'm watching it on Netflix, and I don't feel any certain way. I will say, by all the shit that this movie has gotten publicly, I went in there expecting the worst, and then what I got was like, oh, it's not that bad actually, but it's just not. It doesn't deserve 13 Oscar nominations. It'd be so interesting. And I guess by the time this episode airs, we'll know if it won any of them.
I think it has not a very good chance because of the controversy surrounding it. By the way, you were talking about this earlier, but this Mexico hates this movie. This is not the best international feature from Mexico. This is the best international feature from France.
Oh, that's interesting. I've also heard that many members of the LGBTQ community also do not like this movie, and I can see why, because what it says about trans people, the messaging is very mixed.
It says they can be bad people too, so that actually might be a progressive view.
Progressive thing, yeah. I don't know.
Well,
Vince,
La La Land was great though, so I think we can just stick our hat on that. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
and this is Alon, and we finally watched Amelia Perez, but I finally watched La La Land.